Good evening, doctors. This is Dr. Brimhall. I was waiting for the second hand to turn right to 7 o'clock, and we're ready to rock and roll. I tell you what, I am so impressed with the doctor I'm going to introduce you to tonight. It's hard to believe he's 34 years old because he has the organizational skills of a 100-year-old with the mind of a 30-year-old. So Dr. Walker and I met through one of our Brimhall certified docs that listened to him, bought his neuropathy package that he has available, so you don't have to go to seminars. He does a really good job of putting everything together. I mean everything, A, B, C, all the way through Z of whatever he's teaching you to market. And this doctor literally started his program on July 1st, and by July 22nd, he had collected an extra $72,000. Now, I know there were some numbers that were thrown out there. He went over that, of course, because he still had another 8 days to go before the month was over. But it was so impressive to me that somebody who's never done a niche before listened to what Dr. Walker had to say, followed it implicitly, and could have that kind of results. And then we've been launching the use of the Beamer, which you probably heard about, and we're going to be talking about that more. We're going to have a webinar, probably one a month, about it, because I have never seen such an instrument that gives me such incredible results. But this doctor added the Beamer to the peripheral neuropathy, had to get his second one before the week was over. So we have a lot of fun things to talk about. I'm going to turn you over to Dr. Jonathan Walker. Go ahead, Doc.
Dr. Brimhall, let me thank you for having me on as a guest here. I consider it a real honor to be trusted to bring something so important to your list. And I'm excited to talk about conquering the neuropathy niche today. And I really don't think I can have a much better introduction. I've never been accused of being a 100-year-old before, but I'm going to take that as a high compliment because I'm sure that was the intent. So I thought that was a great introduction. Certainly appreciate that. Let's talk about Obamacare. And I know that we've got a very diverse group on this board. We have a lot of doctors who may be in 100% cash practices, just fully sold out in the functional medicine niche. But I guarantee with a group this size, we've also got a lot of docs who you deal with insurance in your practice. You deal with major medical. You deal with Medicare, with Medicaid, and Obamacare, and all the changes that have come with it. A lot of you have been having some sleepless nights. And I know I talk with a lot of doctors all over the country with my different consulting programs, and Obamacare is a big deal in the sense that insurance premiums are getting higher and higher for a lot of folks. We're seeing reimbursement declining. I'm seeing Blue Cross Blue Shield plans with three visits that they cover, and then we have to go to the table and beg for more. And I'll tell you right now, that is not the future. If you want to be successful, if you want to be happy, if you want to have time to enjoy and have flexibility in your life and freedom in your practice, that's not the model. And there may be people that are taking you down that pathway, but I'm sorry to step on your toes and tell you that that's not the case. But what I'm going to share with you today is, man, why I sleep like a baby at night. And I don't have these same hang-ups and concerns about what's Obamacare going to do to Blue Cross and Cigna and United Healthcare and Aetna. We accept some of those plans, but really and truly, it's just for the patients that come to us on a referral from other patients. And if we're not in network with their insurance, we tell them, and we have a very reasonable and competitive cash adjustment price. But this is just simply a non-issue for me. And the reason is that in my own practice, I'm in the trenches just like you guys in Ocala, Florida, about an hour and a half north of Orlando. And my practice is focused primarily on two different areas. One of them, of course, is peripheral neuropathy, which we'll be talking about today, and that is a cash-based niche. The other one is personal injury. And so as Dr. Brimhall mentioned, I actually have a consulting program in two different arenas. One of them is personal injury. It's called PI Marketing Elite. And the second, what we'll be focusing on today, is called Neuropathy Elite. And I can tell you firsthand, these two things, this kind of yin and yang of an insurance-based grassroots marketing with personal injury and a cash-based, external marketing-driven, referral-driven base with peripheral neuropathy, it's a great balance. Just to give you some statistics, and I'm only sharing these because Dr. Brimhall asked if I would, so please don't hear this as me bragging or boasting, because there's plenty of doctors out there that are doing phenomenal numbers and sometimes far more than we are. But we, on average, in my practice, see anywhere from about 120 to 150 new patients a month. And this year we are on track to set a new record year. We should be just over $3 million in collections this year. And again, I don't say that to brag and boast. I just want you to understand that this is a pathway to success that works. And this is something that I've proven and I've tested, and am in the trenches in 2015, just like you guys. So I want to give you some hope that if your goal is, you've never cracked 500,000 and you want to hit that plateau, or you want to go over 1 million for the first time, or you've hit 1 million and you want to go to 2, these are the types of steps that you can take. And so I'm excited to share a lot of different facets of neuropathy niche with you today. We're going to talk about some clinical stuff. We'll talk about a bit on communication and how some of those things factor in, and then we'll talk about marketing. What am I doing to bring in, of those 120 to 150 new patients we see each month, I would say on average anywhere from 40 to 60, depending on the month, are neuropathy patients. So it's a significant volume that we have seen consistently over the last about 5 years. So let me share with you first a little bit about why I started treating neuropathy. I was actually first kind of exposed to this as a niche, if you will, from a Dr. Michael Beck, who is a chiropractic marketer, and I was one of his beta test groups for his newspaper ads. And he told me that he was writing newspaper ads for neuropathy, and the phone was ringing off the hook. And I don't know about those of you on the call, but I'm the type that if someone I trust, a vendor, one of my colleagues, a friend, an associate, gives me firsthand knowledge of something that is generating a pile of new patients, I'm interested. And so that's what kind of took me down the rabbit hole, if you will, of the different methods and techniques and tools. And that's why I'm excited now to be in relationship with Dr. Brimhall, because one of the things I told him on our first conversation was I'm a rookie in the functional medicine space. And so Dr. Brimhall is exposing me to some of the things that his organization does and some of the folks he partners with. I'm going to be adding the Beamer technology that he mentioned, because I want to see if some of my toughest of the tough neuropathy cases that don't respond with our current methods maybe helps with those things. So in any case, that's just in a nutshell sort of how I got into the neuropathy niche. Now, what I want to share with you next is why I love treating neuropathy, because a lot of people, this isn't something they enjoy. Your typical family doctor, they hate dealing with neuropathy patients because they don't have good solutions. Most chiropractors, I know before I was aware and exposed to some of these clinical techniques, I was frustrated with neuropathy patients because I couldn't help them with regular chiropractic adjustments to the spine. And so I absolutely love treating a group of patients that have basically been told their situation's hopeless. There is no more rewarding and fulfilling aspect of practice than helping people who have been told there's no hope. And I mean, I can tell you on probably a weekly basis, I have patients break down in tears in my office, and it's usually not when you'd expect. It's not usually after they've gotten great results and are gushing about how wonderful we are. It's usually on the first visit when I tell them there's hope. And they tell me, well, my medical doctor said neuropathy can't be reversed or can't be treated. These nerves can't regrow. And what I tell them is, your doctor is right. There are no drugs, there are no surgeries, and there are no injections that can reverse peripheral neuropathy. And what does your doctor know, Mrs. Jones? He knows drugs, he knows surgery, and he knows injections. Well, guess what? That's not what we're going to be doing. And so the beautiful thing is then you can take out and have your research binder for those left-brained, type A's, and show them the research that uses titles like reversal of diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and really speak to these people in a way that's got high credibility. So I just love treating this niche. I also love that there's virtually no competition. Dr. Brimhall and I, in the lead up to this webinar, was asking me about other things I do in my office, and knee pain is one of the niches that we've tackled in the last couple of years, and it's also very rewarding. But there's a lot more competition, because with knee pain, they've got an option of go to the orthopedic surgeon and get injections covered by Medicare, which can often help some. They don't fix the problem, but they can cover it up. Or they can go to the orthopedic surgeon and get a knee replacement, 100% covered by Medicare, and they're told that it's a solution. So fortunately, there's a lot of people who want to avoid surgery. They've heard horror stories. They have maybe cardiac issues that they're nervous about, or the doctors are nervous about putting them under anesthesia. So there's a market out there. But with neuropathy, you don't have competition. You've got Lyrica, gabapentin, Neurontin, Cymbalta. You've got these medications that even doctors who write them don't present them as a true solution. They don't explain to them, here's what's causing your neuropathy, here's what's happening with those nerves, and here's how this will reverse it. they tell them, this may take the edge off a little bit, but there's nothing really that can be done. That's why you'll find results like Dr. Liebman, who gave me permission to mention him by name. He is Dr. Brimhall's one of his students and gurus, and has spoken very highly to me of Dr. Brimhall. And Dr. Liebman, to give you the rest of that story, by the end of the month, had actually collected $87,000. And Dr. Liebman, with competition in his area, wouldn't have been able to achieve that same result if every medical doctor on every corner was getting great results with peripheral neuropathy, doing things covered by Medicare. So there's just not a lot of competition, and that's always a good space to be in. I love the fact that there's rock-solid certainty. And what I mean by this is that your treatment results are very predictable. When I sit down with the patient in the initial consultation, I'll explain to them at the end of the consult what our goals are for the following visit. And I'll explain to them why our office policy is that they bring a spouse with them, because we're going to block out a 30-minute chunk of time. And Mrs. Jones, doctors don't do that anymore. But we want to spend plenty of time with you because I want to go over your test results from today. We want to talk about the treatment options. What can be done to actually regenerate these damaged blood vessels and these damaged nerves? We're going to talk about what a trial course of treatment is going to look like. And what I mean by that, Mrs. Jones, is that it doesn't take months and months and months to see progress. Typically, a trial in our office is about 4 to 6 weeks. We do 3 sessions weekly. And the beautiful thing is about 80 to 85% of patients are showing significant improvement at that halfway point. And if that's the case, we'll continue forward for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Now, that figure that I gave you, that 80 to 85%, some of you may have techniques and systems with functional medicine, with technology like the Beamer and some of the other things that we'll talk about today, that you may even be higher than that. So if your numbers are even higher than that, kudos to you. You just need to get more people in the door. And so that's what we'll talk about in the second half of today's webinar is marketing. How do you get these people in? How do we do it so repeatedly? But the rock solid certainty that be able to look at someone and say with 80 to 85% confidence, and I tell them that's not just in my office. I train doctors all across the country from Boston to Seattle, and we see consistently those types of results. And I have never, and I told you how many patients we see a month, never had a patient look at me and say, well, that's it? You mean that's all you can do? People to a person, literally, are astonished with those results. And the cool thing is that it's true. And it's backed by good clinical science, good clinical rationale, and peer-reviewed literature, which we'll touch on a few of those things here today. There's a lot of integrity in your diagnosis and your results with neuropathy. People ask me, maybe some of you on this webinar have already used Michael Beck's ads, or you've used some of the other neuropathy consultants' ads, and there's a lot of great ones. So please don't think that I'm denigrating any of those. Some of those I've used in my own practice and continue to use because I like to mix up different types of ads and different things. But one of the reasons that my marketing is so different, Dr. Liebman had been doing neuropathy marketing for quite a while in his area. It wasn't something he'd never marketed before. But he'd see an average newspaper ad would pull, 4, 5, 6 people. He'd start a couple of them on treatment. And so with his case fees, the numbers still worked, but it wasn't this, bonanza. And so with neuropathy, the reason that my newspaper ads we find pull so well and so much better than what most people are used to is that we use scripting and language that says if you're a candidate, if you have reached 85% nerve damage with our neuropathy severity exam, and you'll learn, of course, how to do that and what that is, if you've reached 85% nerve damage or greater, there's likely nothing we can do to help you. And that's powerful. The fear of loss sadly is a much more powerful motivator for most people than the pleasure of gain. And so you're presenting yourself as an expert who is going to determine, much like a surgeon, who's a candidate and who's not. So when you use language like, if we accept your case, if I can help you, if you're a candidate, if we can take on you as a patient, that's not smoke and mirrors. It's not like we're chiropractors. Someone comes in with back pain, well, golly, unless, they've got a tumor or they've got an infection or something, you're going to adjust them or you're going to do something with them, because we've got so many great ways to help these people. But with peripheral neuropathy, you're going to position yourself as a specialist who is determining which cases you take on and which you don't. But again, it's done with integrity, because if their nerve damage is too far gone, you may not be able to take on their case, or you may have to tell them, this is going to be a bit of a shot in the dark. There may only be a 20 or 30% chance of success. Are you willing to test that? Or you can have someone who comes in and it's not neuropathy at all. It's lumbar stenosis, it's fibromyalgia, it's peripheral artery disease, it's reflex sympathetic dystrophy. And so you need to be able to tell these people, well, this is not the solution. Here's what you need to do. So there's a lot of integrity that comes with this. And from a headspace standpoint, you're going to get to the place very quickly where you believe that this is your job, just like a surgeon is. They don't say anyone that comes in with back pain is willing to lay down on a table, we're going to cut on them. They determine who is likely going to respond and who won't. And that's one of the ways that you get the clinical results that you do, because you're actually using a system to determine who you can help and who you can't. And then sadly, this niche isn't going anywhere. When we look at the type 2 diabetes epidemic in our country, neuropathy, of course, comes part and parcel with that. But I would ballpark that at least 50, if not 60% of my neuropathy patients are not diabetic. So this is not just a diabetes thing. This is bad circulation. This is medication side effects. This is chemotherapy. And unfortunately, as the baby boomers are aging, all of these things are continuing to swell. There's a trend forecaster whose name is Harry Dent. And Harry Dent is an economist that forecasts economic trends, and he says that the next big mega trend in healthcare is anything related to type 2 diabetes, whether that be wound care, foot care, orthotics, sugar, blood testing equipment, dialysis, neuropathy treatment. That's the next mega trend in healthcare. So you want to look at, I explained to Dr. Brimhall how I choose what types of niches that I want to implement in my office and what type of marketing that I want to craft and what we're going to go after. And one of those things is, are there enough people out there that this is a serious enough problem that they want to invest a significant enough amount of money that it's worth my while to market for it and to attract them as patients. So this is a niche that people ask me, I've been doing regular chiropractic, I'm looking to add one niche. I tell them, I don't care if you buy my program or not, neuropathy needs to be the niche that you add. Let's talk a little bit first about the clinical side of neuropathy, because some of you are very, very familiar with this. On a group this size, I'm positive we've got doctors who know far more than I do about the pathophysiology of peripheral neuropathy. We probably have some neurodiplomates. We may even have some neurologists in a group this size. So what I'm going to give you is just the very basic sort of Cliff's Notes overview, if you will. But I think it's important that you really dial into this, because you're going to see how the treatment that we use addresses the cause directly and how we communicate that to patients. So what we'll do is take a brief kind of break after we talk clinical, take some time for questions and for those to come through on the clinical side, and then we'll move into the second half into marketing. So the very simple version that I explain to patients when it comes to peripheral neuropathy is that it's diminished peripheral circulation that's choking off blood supply to those little tiny peripheral nerves. What I tell them is, Mrs. Jones, every little tiny nerve you have in your feet and in your hands is fed and nourished by even smaller little tiny blood vessels. And just like the roots of a tree feeding and nourishing that tree, if you're not getting enough blood flow, those nerves start to die off. It's like a tree with the leaves starting to turn brown and starting to wilt and starting to fall off. And you see how easy that is for patients to grab on that and understand that. And most of your seniors, because that's going to be the group that this marketing attracts, most of your seniors already believe or have already been told their circulation's not great, because their hands are always cold, their feet's always cold, they always want to keep a double thick pair of socks on. So you're not trying to engage them in something that is completely foreign to them. And that's the simple, easy way that I explain it. But, just since we're talking here to a group of physicians, I'll show you a couple of references that talk about this in, shall we say, more scholarly, doctorly language. The true term is microangiopathy, and this is resulting, we see here, in endo neurial hypoxia. So it's the vasa nervorum. That's those little tiny blood vessels that are feeding those nerves, and that's what we believe is one of the main things implicated in impair of the diabetic neuropathy. And so those of you that are listening, if you're on Dr. Brimhall's list, you likely have some interest in functional medicine. Well, you talk about wanting to bring more diabetic patients to be able to help. We have a program in our office that is supervised by the medical physician with me, and it's 100% natural, supplement-based. Matter of fact, we use the same optimal health supplements that Dr. Brimhall recommends, and a combination of nutritional whole food supplements and dietary changes. And we have about a 90% success rate in reversing type 2 diabetes. And what you'll find is that neuropathy marketing will often attract more diabetic patients to your office than marketing for diabetics. I've got a doctor in Columbus, Ohio, who really likes to treat diabetes and thyroid. And so he uses my neuropathy marketing because he knows it'll bring in a bunch of diabetic and thyroid patients more than marketing specifically for those conditions. So pretty cool stuff. Here's another table out of, this is a different text here. And it just shows that what I'm explaining to you is a gross oversimplification. There's a lot of things that go into this, and that's why, from a functional medicine standpoint, there's a lot of different angles that you may be able to address. But you see vascular impairment right there at the top is one of the most central and most critical elements. This is a great table because this talks about multiple mechanisms that can be implicated in the impaired regeneration of diabetic nerves. So you see I've underlined here microangiopathy, that's the blood flow problem. You wouldn't believe how many of your diabetic patients have never had a doctor take the time to explain to them, or at least explain it in a way that made sense to them, what was causing their neuropathy. Well, my diabetes causes it. Well, I understand that, Mrs. Jones, but did he explain why? You see how low the bar is set from a patient education standpoint? You see how you can blow these people out of the water in the first 5 minutes of their consult just by listening to them and asking questions and asking how this makes them feel and how it's affecting them and how it's one of the terms I learned from Dr. Andy Barlow is how is this robbing joy from your life? I mean, that's brilliant in a consult setting. So you want to listen and hear what these folks have to say. Inflammation, this is something that we address from a nutritional level, explaining to them how decreasing dietary inflammation not only decreases pain, but we now know it helps to speed up nerve regeneration. We see that attenuated inflammation is one of the causes of long-term failed regeneration or impaired regeneration in nerves. So you see a lot of this stuff kind of come together full circle. Now, from a treatment standpoint, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what do we do to treat these patients? And let me first preface this by saying there's a lot of different ways that you can treat peripheral neuropathy. So far be it from me to tell you that my way is the only way and this is the end-all be-all. And there's a lot of ways you can treat it. There's things like, and I'm experimenting with these things right now. That's why I'm excited to add the Beamer. I got a Beamer in my driveway. I'm excited to add a Beamer in my clinic because I'm like Dr. Brimhall. I like to have the gadgets and the toys and the latest and greatest stuff to try out because you will attract some of the toughest patients in your community, meaning some of the most challenging, complicated conditions. And you better have the firepower in your arsenal to be able to treat these people. And if you're going to demand case fees of, let's say, in this board probably, or in this group probably $2,000 to $10,000 case fees, that's a pretty broad range. You're going to have that type of commitment financially from a patient. You better have the firepower. You better have the big boy toys to get this stuff done. And so what I'm going to share with you are the things that I am currently using in my office to treat these with an 80 to 85% success rate. And now these are chosen based off clinical results. These have been chosen based off of a background in the scientific literature. These have been chosen based on scalability. One of the challenges with buying let's say a class 4 laser is that they're not cheap. And so as you grow to buy a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, that can get pricey. I'll share with you the devices we use that are easy to scale. And then lastly, Dr. Brimhall mentioned that I'm kind of a systems thinker. And so I want to look at systems that can scale and systems that can be managed by staff and systems that can be done with unattended therapy. Set it and forget it, if you will. So just let me preface that by saying if you don't hear your favorite, you're a big pulsed electromagnetic field fan, or you're a big laser fan, or you're a Hacomed fan, or keep using that stuff. If you're getting results with it, I'm just going to share with you what I use and what we found that works. So the first thing that we use is infrared diode therapy. We use a device called the Health Light, and the beauty of it is that these things are about, probably $1,600 a pair, and I think we've got 7, maybe 8 pairs of them in the office right now, because I use these mostly on my neuropathy patients, but I'll use them occasionally on some of my car accident patients that have rib fractures or have other problems where I want to speed up blood flow to an area that's kind of recalcitrant to healing. So you can scale this very easily. There's a company called Chiroline.com that you can purchase all of the neuropathy supplies that I'm going to mention, kind of get them in one place. So, and I have no vested interest in that. It's a good friend of mine that owns that company, and he was actually one of my original Neuropathy Elite test sites, and he has been just crushing. He's going to be on track this year to do his first $1 million year in practice, and peripheral neuropathy has been a central part of that. So kind of a neat testimonial as well. So infrared diode therapy, we'll typically do this for about 20 minutes. You can do the hands and feet at the same time if you have 2 sets of pads there. Tons and tons and tons of support in the clinical literature for this type of therapy. So this is something that if you do marketing to medical doctors, I do a lot of family doctor marketing for the personal injury side of my practice, you can sit down with them and show them what you're doing is not hocus pocus. It's supported in PubMed, peer-reviewed, published literature. Next thing that we'll use is vibration therapy. We do 2 different types of vibration. First is done seated on their feet and on their calves, and the key frequency you want to hit is 30 to 50 hertz. So 30 to 50 hertz is kind of the magic number because that's what the literature shows opens up circulation. Second thing that we'll do is standing oscillating whole body vibration. Now, with the standing vibration, we're not only helping circulation, but now we're dealing with balance and proprioception. And boy, let me tell you, when you're communicating with neuropathy patients, you owe it to them. You are doing them a disservice if you're not explaining the implications that their condition has on balance. I mean, I cannot tell you the number of patients I've had that balance is what brought them to my office. Matter of fact, one of the ads that you'll receive if you join the Neuropathy Elite program says peripheral neuropathy, a deadly condition, ? And it talks about balance and how fall-related injuries injuries due to falls are the leading cause of injury death in seniors. There's 60,000 a year. And so this is something that your patients need to be made aware of because a lot of them have never had that connection made. And so I explained to them, Mrs. Jones, my goal is not just to treat your pain. My goal is to help you avoid falls, fractures, and the nursing home. I have a new patient that started care with us this week that has taken 3 significant falls prior to seeing me. One of them, she suffered a compression fracture in her lumbar spine. One of them, she broke her left hip, and one of them, she broke her right hip. Do you think I have her attention when I'm talking about vibration and I'm talking about how this is going to improve balance? And there's some really dynamic studies that show how this therapy, just used in and of itself, has some pretty cool implications and effects with balance. So fall prevention is huge. You'll have people that will spend $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on a case fee in your office who don't have pain. So don't talk to them about their foot pain. It's balance. That's what they want to regain, and that's rewarding because that's mobility, that's independence, that's quality of life. That's what it's really about. Last thing we'll typically do in office is adjusting of the extremities. We'll usually use a combination of an arthro-stem or an impulse IQ with some gentle sort of hands-on mobilization type of techniques because we want to work on the biomechanics of those joints. We want to use the instrument to stimulate some of those mechanoreceptive nerves, tons and tons of nerve endings in the feet. We need to wake those puppies up. So that's what we do in office. If you've got clinical indication to adjust the spine, if there's a spinal component to this, then adjust the spine as well, or if you want to do decompression, whatever clinically you find, just make sure that if you're going to do this, these will be Medicare patients, so make sure, because that's, of course, a Medicare coverage service, make sure that you're following proper Medicare documentation, billing guidelines, so on and so forth. So this is the one piece of the puzzle. If you're doing this, that's going to be covered by Medicare with these patients. This is not something that we adjust every single neuropathy patient just because, but again, we look for same clinical indication you would use for someone that came into you with back pain. You'd decide if you're going to adjust someone that has neuropathy or not. So that group of therapies that we're typically doing, you figure that's about 45 to 55 minutes of time in the office. And of that, how much that's your time as the doctor? Maybe a minute or 2, 3 minutes? How long does it take you to adjust someone's feet? So some of you on this call have busy practices already, and you're going, man, I don't know how I could jam in all these new patients without just overhauling everything. You're not going to have to. You may have to hire some more therapy staff, but let me tell you, as someone that has, I think I've got, 17 staff in my main office now and 3 staff in my satellite office, as someone who is used to managing a lot of staff members, the easiest staff position to add and to train is a back office therapy assistant. So if it means hiring and training more therapy assistants, they're helpful on the first day and they're usually pretty functional within a week or two of proper training. So that's the beauty of this, is it scales very, very easily and very, very quickly. You know, I had a doctor who was concerned about space, and I told him, I said, Doc, everything I just mentioned to you, the infrared treatment's done seated, the vibration's done seated, the standing vibration's a small platform. I had in my previous office a room that was one of our adjusting rooms. We had 3 adjusting rooms. We turned one into a neuropathy room. Probably an 11 by 11 space. We could see 4 to 5 neuropathy patients at once in that space because the therapy is unseated. I had a guy in Canada that came on board with me, and those of you that get to know me better will know I'm a very outside of the box kind of strategic solutions thinker, and I always want to figure out what's going to be the win-win for everybody involved here. And he was complaining that he just space-wise said, man, I'm in 1,500 square feet. I'm using every inch of it. There's no way that I can squeeze out a space. I said, do you have a waiting room? I said, yeah, of course I do. I said, your waiting room's not going to be your waiting room anymore. He said, what do you mean? I said, it's going to be your neuropathy room. You're going to set your neuropathy patients up on treatment while they're waiting in the lobby. And guess what? It's not just going to be your neuropathy room. It's going to turn into your referral room, because people will walk in and go, what on earth are these lights wrapped on the hand? And the patients that have been there will tell them about what's going on and how wonderful they're doing. And he was pretty excited about that. So a lot of times if you get creative, the solution will present itself. So that's what we do in office. Typical treatment program, we'll do 3 sessions weekly, as I mentioned, for a trial of 4 to 6 weeks. If they're showing improvement, then we'll continue for the next 4 to 6. I'd say probably a 9 to 10 week treatment program is probably my average with neuropathy. Now, we also send them home with some home therapy equipment that they use. The home therapy equipment is a key part of the puzzle for several reasons. Number one, it's about clinical results. If these people are doing something on their own daily, they're going to get better clinical results. Number two, they have a vested interest in the treatment. It's not just a passive, I show up and lay here. They're participating and they're doing something. And that's powerful psychologically. That's why a lot of you that have attended business personal development seminars, even churches do this nowadays, where they have those response cards, because they recognize a lot of direct mail pieces have these now. They recognize just by you doing something, taking an act of filling out a card, engaging, is going to increase your receptiveness to whatever marketing message or spiritual principle or whatever they're trying to convey. So having your patients actively engage in something, they have a vested interest. They have a role. They have to maintain their nutrition. They have to maintain their home care. There's 3 pieces of the puzzle. There's nutrition, there's home care, and there's the office treatment. So it helps them have some responsibility and own some of these results. But then I think the biggest reason is taking the sword off of the table of the chiropractic, I'm sure you help me, but I got to keep coming the rest of my life, don't I? Don't wait for them to ask that question. They're thanking it once they find out you're a chiropractor. Because a lot of these patients, when you run your ads, it's not that we hide the fact we're chiropractors. In most states, you have to put in your ad DC, chiropractor, chiropractic physician, something like that. So we don't hide it. But it's not something we're advertising that chiropractic's the solution for neuropathy, because it's these other things that we're doing. And so once they find out you're a chiropractor, you're already in an uphill battle from a credibility standpoint, which is a shame, but let's just face the facts. And so when you take that sword off of the table before they can try and cut you with it and say, Mrs. Jones, the beautiful thing is that after you've completed that course of treatment, 95% of my neuropathy patients don't have to continue with any ongoing treatment in our office, because we find if you continue with your home care and continue with your nutrition, you don't have to keep coming back to see us. I joke with them. I tell them we do a nice Christmas party every year, so come back and see us for that. But this isn't something you have to keep coming once a week for the rest of your life. And now that's a different scripting that I'll use with a chiropractic patient, because I'm a big believer in maintenance chiropractic treatment, and I believe that the science is now starting to be published to back that up. But with neuropathy, I've just not found it necessary. And I'm not going to arbitrarily make someone keep coming, put that in their head so that they're less likely to take treatment. And, man, I got a busy office. I don't want to tie up one of my treatment seats with someone who doesn't really need to be there, and I'm just selling them a program that they don't need. So the home treatment that I mentioned, the most critical piece of the puzzle, is a device many of you have probably heard of. It's called the Rebuilder. And the Rebuilder is purchased directly from rebuildermedical.com, and this is a powerful, powerful little gadget. This device was developed by Dr. David Phillips, who invented the infrared ear thermometer, and basically did well enough to probably retire several times over, and set out to start inventing things that could help his family and loved ones. And his father suffered with peripheral neuropathy. So this is a device that uses conductive garments. You see these, they almost look like socks, but they're lined with silver threads, and they conduct a signal that comes from this device. Great tool to have in the arsenal. Cancer Treatment Centers of America uses this as their primary mode of alleviating cancer, chemotherapy-related peripheral neuropathy. And I've got testimonial letters from them on their letterhead that discuss that. So really cool device, and it's something that enables the patients to have an active role. They can sit and watch television, read the paper while they're doing this treatment. Okay, what I want to do, if the technology will permit here, and again, Dr. Brimhall and his IT people will have to help me out a little bit. If you want to go ahead and type in questions on the clinical side of what we talked about, I want to take just a couple of minutes and field any clinical questions, because that's kind of the first half of today's talk. And then we'll transition for the second half of the webinar into marketing. So if you have any clinical questions, please type them in the questions box that you see on your go-to webinar screen there. And I'll field as many of those as I reasonably can, and then we'll jump into the second half, and we'll talk about marketing, and I'll kind of give you an overview of my Neuropathy Elite system, and give you a pretty unique opportunity to be able to join in with us and engage your community and your patients in what we're doing.
Dr. Jonathan, while Clark is getting those questions in there, we made a very special peripheral neuropathy nutrition based on a lot of the things that you were talking about. Can you tell us how nitric oxide is so powerful for these types of patients that we develop with OHS?
Absolutely. That is the very fundamental basic science principle of what the infrared light is doing. It's stimulating the endothelium to produce nitric oxide, which of course results in vasodilation, and it also results in angiogenesis and the formulation of new peripheral blood vessels. And so nutritionally, we find that when you support the therapies that you're doing with nutritional protocols, OHS has got a great formulation they've developed with things like L-arginine and L-citrulline. A lot of the products out there, they contain, a lot of the things you see at GNC and the health food stores, they contain arginine and citrulline in what I call window dressing formulations, meaning it's in there, but there's really not enough of it to be, clinically active and powerful. And so that's the beauty of what OHS has put together, is they've formulated multiple different substances in this product that is designed to boost nitric oxide production. And between that, some of the things, again, that you learn through Dr. Brimhall and through his programs with the overall biochemical environment of the body, decreasing inflammation, dealing with the diabetes, some of these underlying things. I mean, you're cleaning these people's health up in very powerful ways. Neuropathy was just the kind of front-end hook that brought them in the door. But what you can do from a functional medicine standpoint, a lot of thyroid patients, diabetics, patients with chronic fatigue, with fibromyalgia, there's some amazing opportunities to help a lot of these folks with some pretty nasty chronic conditions.
Clark, do we have any questions that came in? Well, I'm not hearing a word, Doc. Why don't you go on?
I don't hear anything. So that tells me one or two things.
So sorry there. Are you? Am I gotcha?
Yeah,
we do have a couple of questions coming in regarding the Beamer and how it is working. So this question is, what is your impression of the Beamer for treating neuropathy?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to answer that because I'm the only one that's done it. We're going to get Dr. Jonathan. He's going on vacation, goofing off. We made him stay up late tonight before he takes off tomorrow. I tell you, I've been using the Beamer now for 3 weeks, and I'm a laser guy. You guys know that. I have PMF lasers, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, and I hate to admit anything like this, but if we're going to have one toy now, it would be the Beamer. There are ways of measuring the peripheral neuropathy or how much circulation you're getting to the feet, and when you put them on the Beamer, they have ways of measuring that, and you will see circulation, microcirculation improving in 2 minutes. By 8 minutes, you're getting blood where it probably hasn't been in years. I don't care if it's in the liver or the intestines or in the feet. It has been incredible. There's a 41-patient study where all 41 were scheduled to amputate their legs because of diabetic neuropathy, and we had no circulation down there. And all 41 patients had to cancel their surgery after a number of weeks of treatment. So we don't want to take all night about that, but what I'll promise you, I'll get somebody on in 2 weeks from tonight. We'll do a whole beamer therapy session. But when you watch it happen, it just blows you away. So call Jason tomorrow at our office, 866-338-4883, or just go to brimhall.com if you want more information. We've got so many studies, it's crazy.
Another question here, how much NO is required?
Again, I'm going to let Dr. Brimhall field that one.
What the product that we have made because of this combination, and we did a complete webinar on that. So just again, call the office tomorrow and say, hey, I'd like to see a copy of that nitric oxide webinar we did last week, and we'll shoot it out to you because we have all the science to back it up, and the results are phenomenal. So we've designed this where you can take just 1-3 times a day and get massive results in elevating the nitric oxide, whether you're looking for ED problems or peripheral neuropathy or blood pressure stabilization. I mean, it's the product of all products. So let's shoot you that webinar rather than take up any more time tonight. We have those recorded. Can shoot it right off to you an email tomorrow.
Let's go ahead and push into the second half of today's presentation, and let's talk about marketing, because a lot of you are on this call tonight not because you had questions about the treatment of neuropathy. Some of you may be very much in need of a step-by-step system for that, but a lot of you are on this call because you're interested in the fundamental question of practice, which is, how do I get more new patients in the door? One of my mentors told me something a couple years ago I thought was funny. He said, there are very few problems in practice that more new patients can't fix. and that's true. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. But if you've got a steady stream of new patients, there's some practices out there that have really leaky buckets, if you will, bad systems, issues, but they still do pretty well because they figured out ways to get in a lot of new patients. So let's talk about that. This market, the peripheral neuropathy market, is seniors. And what you'll find is that this is a hyper-responsive market when it comes to neuropathy marketing because they're not inundated with a lot of options other than the TV commercials for Lyrica and Cymbalta. They're not given a lot. There's not a lot of marketing driven to these people. There's some things on the internet with different creams and supplements and things like that, but for the most part, these are people that are very hungry and looking for a solution, and they're hyper responsive, particularly with certain mediums. You look with your local newspaper, your local talk radio station. It's going to skew heavily to the senior, that 65 plus demographic. And so I tell people, I had a doctor I was talking with in Illinois, and I said, if you don't like, let's be real honest, because he kind of brought this up. I said, if you don't like dealing with old folks, with seniors, don't buy my program because you're not in the right niche. But, these are patients that they need what we can deliver. And I had a doctor that said, I'm just not sure. He came from more of a straight chiropractic background. He said, I'm just not sure if this can fit in my paradigm. And I said, that's fine, but you just have to decide, do you want to have a solution in your paradigm for patients with peripheral neuropathy? Because if you keep doing what you're doing, which helps a lot of things, let's be honest, Doc, you're not helping these peripheral neuropathy patients. And that's the decision you have to make is, do I want to offer a solution to these people or not? Now, newspaper is the number one foundation of my neuropathy marketing. People will tell you it's a dying market, it doesn't work anymore, blah, blah, blah. That means one of two things. That means either the marketing they were running just wasn't good, because you're right, if your marketing's no good, nothing works, or they were marketing something that wasn't congruent with the newspaper audience. If I was marketing a new app that I developed for functional medicine, I wouldn't use the newspaper to market that because the crowd that's going to download my functional medicine app is not going to be the people reading the paper. But the good news is that the people reading the newspaper, they are your people. That is the demographic that you're going to be heavily skewing towards. And depending on what part of the country you're in, I'm in Florida. Dr. Brimhall used to be in Arizona. But we've got Dr. Lieben, who we mentioned, was in New Jersey. New Jersey is where they start, and then they come down and retire in Florida. And he did $87,000 in business off of a single newspaper ad. So let me show you some of these ads, because I know a lot of you guys are curious to know exactly what these ads look like and all of that stuff. This is one of our neuropathy seminar ads, because that's the second thing that I'll talk with you about is neuropathy seminars and how powerful those are. So this is a black and white version of that same ad. This is a more colorful version of what's called a neuropathy warning ad. I like to mix up in my paper. I like to have colorful ads. I like to have more plain advertorial looking ads because different people will respond to different things. You get some patients that they like the advertorial stuff because they think it's an article. And then you get other people that see an ad like this and they'll go, oh, wow, this is a really professional, well-done ad. This must be a legitimate organization. This is an insert that you'll see. This is the front of the insert. This is the back of the insert. There's some testimonials on that. And this insert was specifically developed for two reasons. Number one, I like to test and try different things. And number two, some of you are in markets where you go, oh, you don't understand, Dr. Walker. It's $5,000, $10,000 to run a half page in my newspaper. You may be in Houston or New York or Atlanta or Orange County or big markets. Well, that's fine. Then do inserts, zip code targeted inserts, because you don't want to market to the entire metro area in most cases. Would probably still be cost effective, as many cases as you would generate from it, but you can zip code target for $500 to $1,500 worth of inserts. You can usually target a pretty good, let's say, 5-mile radius from your office, which is our main draw area typically. Now, this next ad that I'm going to show you, this is what I've dubbed the $87,000 conversation starter. Because when Dr. Liebman ran this ad, he reached out to me, and he was so excited that he wanted to introduce me to Dr. Brimhall. And of course, I knew of Dr. Brimhall and had read some of his publications and seen some of the different things that he was a part of. But then he said something about, he's speaking at homecoming. And I'm thinking, oh, I wonder, does he mean Palmer homecoming, Parker homecoming, Life homecoming? And I found out Dr. Brimhall's got his own homecoming. So I'm excited to come out. January in Arizona is a beautiful time to be out in Arizona. So I'm excited to be out there next January with him. But this was the $87,000 conversation starter. This is the ad that I call my $1 million neuropathy warning ad. Unfortunately, this is the ad that's being ripped off and plagiarized all over the country, and it's a shame that we see a lack of integrity in some cases. But the reason they're plagiarizing it and stealing it is this works. My doctors have done, and I need to sit down one day and add things up. But $1 million is a very low threshold for the number of business that this ad has generated with practices all across the country. And so it's not, as sophisticated and, as high-tech and as splashy as some of those others. But at the end of the day, the market votes, and the market tells you what works and what doesn't. Charlotte, North Carolina with that ad, 42 new patients. Louisville, Kentucky, 70 new patients, not 70 phone calls, 70 new patients. This is Dr. Tony Sears in Louisville, Kentucky. He had to overhaul his whole office procedures to figure out how to process that many new patients. And because he's an innovative, quick on his feet thinker, he was able to pull it off on a very high way. Nashville, Tennessee, 52 new patients. Columbia, South Carolina, 35 new patients. Dr. Liebman in New Jersey was, I think it was over 40. I don't remember his exact number. Lexington, Kentucky, 40 new patients. This is a kind of a neat testimonial. This is Dr. North Carolina. She said, I went to Dr. Walker's seminar. I used to do some live neuropathy seminars just to pick up some more treatment information, had no intentions to buy, quote, another program or hire another consultant. After signing up with Dr. Walker's Neuropathy Elite program, I came back and had my best month ever in 14 years of practice and collected over $50,000. She'd never been over 30 before. I am still shocked at how easy this plan is, and people are starved for this type of care and are willing to pay for it. And they're all on a fixed income. You guys know what that means. One 90-year-old lady brought in $4,200 in $100 bills. So never again will I doubt what people have and give them what I think they can afford. Trust me, people will pay for what they want. And that's in North Carolina. Now, we talked about neuropathy seminars. This is me up at the very front of the room here speaking to a group. There was probably about 90 people at this particular seminar. People ask me, should I run ads just having them come direct to the office? Should I have ads promoting the seminars? My answer is yes. If you're willing to get up and speak and can do reasonably well, you don't have to be a professional motivational speaker, but you have to be comfortable enough. Most of you have done help talks and classes and different group sessions, things like that. This is the number 2 pillar of neuropathy marketing, is these seminars. Internal marketing is a biggie for us. So with the Neuropathy Elite program, you have not just the newspaper ads I mentioned, you've got about 15 actually different newspaper ads. and we make them camera ready for your newspaper, meaning we'll swap in your information, we'll swap in your picture, have them ready for your newspaper. We give you, with the seminars, you have my neuropathy PowerPoint for the seminar. You have the scripting of what to say and how to deliver it. Internal marketing. The low-hanging fruit for many of you folks is marketing to the existing patients in your practice. So internal marketing needs to be a key part of your strategy. Do in-house seminars. Do some flyers. Dr. Brimhall's got some amazing patient education stuff you can use. The third leg of my marketing triangle, we talked about newspaper, we talked about seminars, is radio. And I'm going to give you guys some very high-level, tested information that hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested in testing this. Right-wing talk radio. That's where you want to be. Don't worry about testing out all the different stations in your area. If you want to spend your money and you don't believe me, that's fine. Yeah, you can pay that tax. But right-wing talk radio, whatever Hannity, whatever Rush, I don't care politically if you love them or hate them. Those are the people that respond to this marketing. One, because of the demographic, and two, people that listen to those talk radio stations, they're paying attention to what's on. It's not like background music that you have on while you're working in the yard or out in the office. You're listening. So when the ads come on, that same level of attentiveness kind of spills over to the ads. So between the demographics being a higher income and a senior skewing demographic, and between the attentiveness factor, right-wing talk radio, and typically these are pretty reasonable to advertise on. A lot of times they have a smaller radius, which is fine. I've got one station that almost has too big of a radius because we've had to develop some special consult procedures for when patients call from an hour, 2 hours down the road. And I got to figure out, are they willing to drive 3 days a week, to come that far? Now, how would you like, based on what we've talked about, to have this whole thing turnkeyed? Dr. Brimhall, I very much appreciate him, vouching for kind of a systems-oriented way in which I think. But that's what we've put together with the Neuropathy Elite system. And it starts with your phone handling procedures for your staff. These are video training modules that you watch, so you don't have to fly all over the country listening to seminars and come visit my office in Ocala, unless you just want to come hang out, which is totally fine. I have a lot of doctors that do that here. So we start with phone handling. We go into the science of neuropathy, all the research, the abstracts, the clinical literature for these different treatments. We talk about neuropathy paperwork, and we give you the neuropathy forms and paperwork that I use in my office. Module number 5 is the neuropathy consultation and what we call the neuropathy severity exam. Very, very simple sensory test that you're measuring how a patient responds to hot, to cold, to sharp, to dull, to different types of stimulus, and it comes up with that score that we discussed. And so you'll learn how to do that. You have a video of my exam doctor doing that examination. Everything is all turnkeyed and laid out for you there. Module number 6 is our report of findings. Module number 7 is the detailed treatment procedures like we touched on today. And then modules 8 and forward is marketing, just like I talked about. You've got about 15 different newspaper ads and inserts. We've got a module on internal marketing, MD marketing, neuropathy screenings. For those of you that do health fairs, don't do a spine screening next time, do a neuropathy screening. And I'll show you how to do it. It's pretty cool. Neuropathy seminars, radio ads, postcards. Some of you have insurance-based practices, I'll show you when you get patients with certain insurance plans, how like a major medical Blue Cross Blue Shield patient, how some of these things can be billed to Medicare. We walk you through that entire pathway. Now, to give you kind of a frame of reference, most of the neuropathy systems out there that are turnkey like this involve a lot of upfront travel and time and expense, and they also involve a lot of back-end continuity fees, ongoing licensing fees, royalties, things like that. And you're talking total, usually about $30,000 to $50,000, which is a bargain, by the way, to add a niche like this to your office. If you started 3 neuropathy patients a month at a $3,000 case fee, which is lower than what most doctors we see are doing, if you start 3 patients a month at a $3,000 case fee, you just added a 6-figure niche. I'll take that all day long. So what we've done with this is made this very affordable and very systemized for the average doctor. So the normal price is $49.95. But anytime I do a webinar or event like this, I always have special pricing. And the reason I do it is not because this is a used car dealership and we want you to make an impulse purchase. It's very simple. It's because I'm in practice like you guys are. I'm not going to be calling you, bugging you, asking Dr. Brimhall for the list of who was on this webinar and calling your front office 5 times a day to see if you're ready to join. I just don't have time for that. I'm in the same boat you guys are, and I don't like your front desk to have to lie any better than than you do and say, oh, he's with patients, he's not available, when I hear you in the background going, shh, 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 shh. So because of that, I would much rather, if this is for you and you understand what a high recommendation Dr. Brimhall's stamp of approval is, because, you know, I got news for you. He doesn't bring any Tom, Dick, and Harry off the street onto his webinar. And so I take that very seriously. And so as a show of thanks and a way to stimulate you to make this decision, I want to make it easy for you. We're going to knock off $1,000 off the price. So take that down to $39.95. And for Dr. Brimhall's group, we're also offering some flex pay options. So you see here, there's a 6 pay if you want to stretch things out for cash flow purposes, a 6 pay of $732, or a 12 pay of $416. Your best option from a financial side is to do the single pay of $39.95. So that is a $1,000 discount for those of you that want to come on board with this program. And so we also, if you do one of the extended payment options, we offer 90 days, same as cash. So if you have the experience like Dr. Liebman, and you get $87,000 in new business, yeah, I would want to pay off my 6 pay or my 12 pay real quick. I've got a doctor in Oregon that has recently come on board with me. Now, he's about 2 months into the program, and he's at $175,000 in collections over the course of about 2 months. So you can see how this stuff can scale very, very quickly. Now, there's a couple of more bonuses that I'm going to add for you that's pretty cool. For the first 5 doctors who order, you're also going to get a Kindle Fire loaded with the entire Neuropathy Elite system. So when you get this program, like I said, you make this investment, you're going to not only get all of the modules sent to you immediately electronically, you're also going to get a set of the manuals, the printed CDs, the binders, something you can touch and feel and highlight and mark on. But for the first 5 of you who call, you're also going to get a Kindle Fire loaded with the entire Neuropathy Elite system. So it's kind of a cool thing that you can use not only as your personal device, but you can have your neuropathy niche in one little tablet, if you will. And that's pretty neat. So I'm going to put my phone number up here, and I'm going to do something rather unique in the form of an additional discount that I've never done before, and my wife actually suggested this to me, so we're going to put this to the test. It is now approaching 10 o'clock for those of us on the East Coast, and I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be up for the next couple of hours to field all of these phone calls. So it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. It's, 7 o'clock now on the West Coast. For those of you who call in the next 30 minutes, because I'm going to be awake here for probably about another half hour before we head off to bed and start our vacation tomorrow, if you call in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to do 2 things for you. I'm going to knock another $200 off the price, so you get another discount, plus I'm going to give you one of my knee pain newspaper ads. So you'll have another killer ad that you can incorporate for knee pain. I know that's something a lot of you using laser and using PEMF and maybe the Beamer and different types of technology are treating knee pain. So if you call in the next half hour, you're going to get an additional $200 discount, and you're going to get the knee pain ad thrown in. Now that special pricing that I offered you, the 6 pay option, the 12 pay option, or the single pay with the $1,000 discount, that pricing is good through the end of this week. Okay, so that means by end of business on Friday, that discount expires. And the reason I do that is that if you do not take decisive action, if this isn't for you, then it's not for you. But if this is something that you want to incorporate in your practice, I want to incentivize you to take action. Because your patients, if you're going to do case fees, you're asking patients who typically have less money than you and are for most of the time less educated than you, you're asking them to sit down and make a $3 or $4 or $5 or $6 or $7 or $8,000 decision. So we ought to be capable of doing the same thing, and that's why I like to do these types of specials. So that being said, let me leave just a couple of minutes for any other questions, whether those be marketing questions, questions about the program, or any questions for Dr. Brimhall before we wrap things up here.
So start your writing going there, and Clark can interject it here. But I really want to pump up to Dr. Jonathan, the great job that you've done here. And they'll see, like I saw, your systems-driven outcome is just absolutely amazing. I've never seen any better, and I'm a student of of good systems. And Homecoming is going to really be fun. We have the caliber, just like Dr. Jonathan, they're going to be there this year. It's the last 3 days of January, so put it on your calendar right now. It's going to be an amazing time. And we're going to have the #1 medical supervisor over Beamer is going to be there as well. And he'll be taking time and teaching us the physiology, the anatomy, and what happens with the PEMF called the Beamer. Clark, do you have any messages for us?
Cost of equipment to get started.
Great question. So if you had none of the equipment I mentioned and you're using my treatment methods, you're looking at under $3,000 worth of equipment, because the infrared lights, the health light is about, like I said, $1,600 a pair. The seated vibe plate's about $300. The standing vibe plate's about $400. The first rebuilder that you purchase, if you're a Neuropathy Elite member, your rebuilder is, I think, $300 is the cost for the whole kit. Of course, that cost is passed along to the patient because they're purchasing them to use at home. And then a few miscellaneous testing supplies, your monofilaments, things like that. So safely under $3,000, even if you had none of the equipment. And ChiroLine that I mentioned, they'll even do finance options with you on that.
Yeah, we'll have everything for you to see and experience at Homecoming if you don't get it ahead of time, or to see how Dr. Jonathan puts it into action. Most of you doing my protocol already have lasers and adjusters and percussors, and the percussor, along with the arthrostem, are really good for this particular treatment. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
If there are other doctors in your market doing this, how effective is it to start another one?
So it's funny, I get asked that a lot, because they'll say, man, there's these competitors in my area that they're doing all of these neuropathy marketing, and I'm just intimidated, and I think they may have the market tapped out. Here's what I can tell you. What you need to be concerned about is not if your competitors are advertising. You need to be concerned if they stop advertising. Because if they stop advertising, it means that the market may have dried up or that their ads are no longer working. If they are continuing to market, what I have found is that if you've got, and this is going to sound silly, but I'm a perfect example of this, because I have about 45 minutes south of me a doctor in the Villages, Florida, who is one of the top neuropathy practices in the country. He's a brilliant marketer. He's a good communicator. He's someone that was very early on the neuropathy bandwagon. And he advertises in my local newspaper as well. And it's a circulation of about 30 to 50,000 people, depending on the day of the week and the time of year. So it's not a huge newspaper. And so there's several of us. And what we found is that his marketing will actually make my marketing work more effectively, because they'll go, oh yeah, we saw that you're doing the same thing that Dr. Davis is doing down in the Villages, and oh boy, we're so happy someone in Ocala is doing it. Look at every time you see a CVS, what's on the opposite street corner? There's a Walgreens. Every time you see a McDonald's, what's on the opposite street corner? There's a Burger King. And there's a reason for that, because they have found that multiple people in the space, if you will, actually ends up being more effective. So you need to be concerned if you're in an area where nobody's, they used to do neuropathy marketing and they quit. Because I don't know about you, but I don't pull good marketing pieces out of commission. There's an old saying that you ride that horse till it drops. And that's what I do with good marketing. So it can actually benefit you if you've got a market that's already kind of being poised, because the average person needs to see a marketing message, depending on which study you look at, anywhere from 7 times to 66 times before that message finally penetrates. So it may be that they've seen it 65 times from someone else, and you're the 66th time that actually gets them to pick up the phone, and it happens to be from your ad.
How important is the radio advertising piece to the program?
I would say that a lot of my doctors don't use it, and some of them do. So the beauty of this is that you get to decide how much money you want to put into this and how much you want to market. So some of my doctors don't run any radio ads. Majority of my doctors do at least run my newspaper ads, but I do have some that they were starting off on a small budget, and so they started with neuropathy screenings and internal marketing. And once they got a few cases rolling, they got some marketing money. That money went right into the marketing war chest, and that bought them their first newspaper ad, and so on and so forth. So it's just all about how many poles you want to have in the water. I probably run, neuropathy-wise, I probably run about 3 to 5 neuropathy newspaper ads a month. and then I run another probably 3 to 4 knee pain or decompression / laser ads a month in my local paper. But again, everybody's different. Some people do tons of radio, some do none. So it really just depends on. And I certainly am available to sit down and talk with any of my clients to answer those questions on what marketing mix might make sense in their area for their budget.
Dr. Walker, you had a little shout out here from one of the doctors listening that did your workshop, and he just said, use Dr. Walker's marketing. It really does work. I'm an example.
I appreciate that, and that's as good of a real-time testimonial as I can have.
Another one here. What kind of support comes with the program?
Sure. So I can tell you, for this price point, obviously this is not a let's get on the phone once a week and do a coaching call, one-on-one type of thing. Most of my doctors don't need a ton of support because the program is designed to be fairly self-explanatory. However, there's always going to be questions. And unless I'm out of town, out of cell phone contact, something like that, generally speaking, I'm available for quick phone consultations and questions, emails, things like that. And there's no additional cost for that because, like I said, it's just not something that I need to charge you a huge fee to get on the phone with you once a week because we just don't need that. But no, any questions, we're here for you to answer them. This is my direct cell phone number that you see on the screen here. So those of you that call me to join the program or call me with more questions, you're calling my direct cell phone number. And as I mentioned, any of the artwork as far as the newspaper is concerned, we provide for you the service of getting that camera ready. So if any of the ads have my picture in them, we'll take that out and put your picture in it. If any of the ads have my name and location, we take care of all of that for you. So you don't have to have a graphic designer on demand to do that work for you.
You mentioned in the presentation tonight that there were about 15 ads as part of the program. Are there new ads coming out as part of it?
Great question. So when you purchase this program, this includes lifetime updates with new ads that I'm developing, meaning things that I'm writing for my own practice. And, we just, that insert that I showed you with the testimonials on the back, that's a brand new piece that we just tested. So yeah, the doctors who joined this system, I launched this about almost 2 years ago. And the doctors who joined 2 years ago, they had, I think, 4 or 5 newspaper ads. And they were still thrilled with the results. But yes, as I continue to add new ads, we offer that loyalty of you continue to get new ads added as I'm developing them for use in my own practice.
How fast can we start seeing the first patient if we join tonight?
So I'm going to give you what the average is, and I'm going to give you what my all-time record is. The average typically is about a week or 2. I would say it takes the average doctor probably 10 to 14 days to go through the videos, get comfortable with the neuropathy exam, the paperwork, the consultation, the report findings, get the equipment ordered. If you ordered tonight and you start on that tomorrow, because we can get you access to this program by tomorrow, be immediately made available to you via Dropbox. Typical is about 2 weeks. My quickest, though, I had a doctor, this is in the Charlotte newspaper, the one that had 42 new patients. His practice was struggling. He needed a shot of testosterone